Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Mincha and Mariv services. If you're standing in the back, please come forward and take a seat. And I'll also ask everyone to please remember to mute or turn off your phones for the duration of the service. We will be using the Sidurim that are in here, but no need to worry. Even though they're Shabbat Sidurim, they have services for weekday Mincha and Mariv. We'll begin on page 289. Page 289.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yihalelu Chasela Shem Shechalo She'ela Ein Chekador Lo Diali Nedang Ratzon Tilat Adonai daber pi v'varech ha'vashashim kodsho le'olam va'eh v'nachon nevarech yamei ata v'yad olam. Hallelujah.
We continue with Chatzi Kaddish on page 290, followed by the Amidah, which we will begin together on page 291. After the Kedusha on 293, we will continue it silently until its conclusion. Please rise.
Yitkadal yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma divarach yirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomeichon v'chay l'chol beit Yisrael b'agala v'zman kariv yimaru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mavorach le'olam u'me'ol maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitamra v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudusha brichu le'elam min kol brechata v'shirata tishbechata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alma v'yimaru amen. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot u'Mevi Goel Livnei v'Nehem Lema'an Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Ufoked Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Avraham ufoked Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai mechayei meitim. Ata Rav le'Hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechalkel chayim b'chesed. Mechayei meitim barachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim u'matir asurihim. U'mekayim u'nato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot u'midol melach. Melech mitu mechay u'matmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atalach chayot meitim. Baruch ata Adonai Mechayei HaMeitim. Page 293. Nekadesh Eshimcha Ba'olam Keshen Shemagdishim Otoveshim Arahom Kakatu Vayad Neviyecha V'karazeh Helzeh Ve'yamar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot Meloch Haaretz Kivodaho Liumatam Baruch Yomeru Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo Uvdivrei Kodshecha Katuv Le'mor Imloch Adonai le'olam Elohayich Sion l'dor v'ador. Hallelujah. L'dor v'adornik yikalech l'netzach netzachim kedushatecha nagdish v'shivacha l'heinu mipinu l'shalom v'oed ki amalek gadol v'kadosh ata Baruch ata Adonai ha'el ha'kadosh.
If you are still reciting the Amidah, please proceed at your own pace while our service continues on page 300.
Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrachir tev yamlich malchut tev v'chayachon v'mechon v'chay l'chol beit Yisrael b'agalav v'zman kari v'imaru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei almaya yitbaharach v'yishavach v'par v'yinav v'yidnasei v'tidar v'tilav v'talal shemei dekudesha barichu le'elam v'korachata v'shirata t'shuchatam nechamat ha'neimaram v'yamav v'imaru. Amen. Yehi shalom Rabbah in shamaya v'chayim alena v'kol Yisrael v'imaru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu yasei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu gegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kamishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, V'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim, u'modim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Adonai himloch leolam vahed v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihye Adonai echad u'shemo echad. This evening, concluding the 18th day of Adar and beginning the 19th day of Adar, we recall those Yortzites who will be observed in this congregation: Sabina Bat Chaim Brautbar, William R. Blumenthal, Evelyn S. Goodman, Greta Gorgi, Irving Greenberg, Louis Hersher, Marilyn Levine, Herman Maltz, Faye Mendelson, Azize Noain, Parviz Pashai, Zoltan Rados, Bernard Richards, Rose Rosenfeld, Sylvia Saroff, Shamuel Shushani, Joseph Turiel, Elka Geller, Roberta J. Goldman, Morris Gordon, Gershon Kext, Gertrude K. Levy, Leah Navi, Shahab Rastagar, Heshmat Fahimian Yassian. And we of course recall the recent passing of Younes Nazarian, husband of Saraya, father of David and his wife Angela, Shulamit and her partner Matt, Sharon and her husband Fernando, Sam and his wife Amina, grandfather of 11 and great-grandfather of 1. We ask those in mourning or observing a yortzeit to please remain standing on page 302 to sanctify God's name in the words of the mourner's Kaddish, page 302. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divara chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imaru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam ulomei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imaru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru. Amen.
Amen.
Osei shalom bimramav, hu ya'asei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru. Amen.
Amen. We continue now with the Arvit service, the evening service, beginning back on page 264. Page 264. Please remain standing for Baruch.
V'hurachum mechaperim v'lo yashchid v'hirba l'shab holer chochmato Adonai Hashem elach yaneinu v'yom koreinu Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed Baruch et Adonai v'melach olam v'shana itim v'chol zmani El Chai v'kayam tamin l'chaleinu leolam v'ed Baruch ata Adonai amariv aravim Havat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha After Torah Mitzvah Chukim Yishmot Halaman Dagin Yihem Chayenu V'Orech Yameinu V'Hem Negei Yom V'Layla V'Yavat Chatzir Men Le'olam Yimruchat Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 265.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha v'chol miyodecha. Ve'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha. Veshinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lachtecha v'derech v'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam liot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvish arecha v'shemot Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kodashim l'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem l'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet Adonai Elohechem emet. U'malchuto bartzon kiblu aleihem Moshe Miriam v'nei sholachanu shira b'simcha rabba v'amru chulam micha mocha be'ilim Adonai mika mocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot osei fele malchutecha ruvanecha bo ki'en lifnei Moshe ze'elianu v'amru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar kiptanat Yaakov Yagol ugialo miad chazak mimenu Baruch ata Adonai Anga'al Yisrael hashkivein Elohim shalom. Oyev Dev V'Recher V'Ra V'Yagam Aser Satan V'Faneinu Macharinu Yamalachanu Rechumata Hashmizim Ushmortzei Tein Evoin L'Chaim Shalom Ataviad Elam Baruch Ata Adonai Shomer Amo Yisrael La'an Baruch Adonai Elam Amin V'Amen Baruch Le'em Yitzhak Shechem Shalom Baruch Alim HaYisrael Amen Yechavod Elam Kil Dosh Elam Yarklam V'Novneim V'Adonai Ad Yichas Nefesh Chanlach Hoshin Leinu Kotzei Min Goyim Lo Dishon Shechad Baruch Adonai B'Yom Baruch Nabai Baruch Hamshachinu Baruch Nabai Baruch Beinu Yad Chanav Shedachem Yedim Asher B'Yad Nefesh Chad Baruch V'Shteif Yad Chav Tziloti Padita Oti Adonai Elamet Ben Shashmayim Yachashim Hamaknu Adonai Melech Adonai Malach Adonai Melach Yilam V'Ed Yihamalchut Shachahi Olamet Yimalach Chavod Ki Ilan Amech Alayata Baruch Ata Adonai HaMelech B'Kvedot HaMinulach Aleinu Elam V'Ed V'Yal Kol Ma'asav.
We continue with Chatzi Kaddish on the bottom of page 269, followed by the silent Amidah, which will begin on page 270. Please rise.
Yitkadal v'yikadash emei rabba v'yalma divrach yirtei v'amlich malchutei b'chayachon v'yimechon v'chaylucho b'et Yisrael v'agalav izman kari v'yimaru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mavorach le'olam u'me'al maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitran v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei de'kudesh yabrichu le'elam min korachata v'shirata tushukata v'nechamata damiran b'yalma v'yimaruhu amen.
If you are still reciting the Amidah, please proceed at your own pace while our service continues on page 280.
Yitkadal v'yikadash emei rabba, v'yamad yivrachir te v'yamlich malchut te v'chayachon, v'mechon v'chayl chobad Yisrael, b'agala uvizman kari v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, le'olam olam el maya, yitbaharach v'yishtabach, yitbahar v'yishtar v'yidnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitala v'yitala shmei dekudesha, b'richu, le'elam mikam brachata v'shirata, tzurchata v'dechamat, hadibaram v'yama v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shamaya v'chayim alenu v'al Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu yasei shalom alenu v'al Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latek dula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu gegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kamishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamahonam, ve'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודיעים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Shatom, can be found on page 282.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Bi'alma divera chirute v'yamlich malchute v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala uvizman kari v'meru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shmei rabba mevorach leolam ulomei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imeru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen.
Amen.
Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'asei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imeru. Amen. May God, who brings peace unto heavens, bring peace unto those who mourn, to the family, to the friend, to this community, for the passing of Younes Nazarian. And let us all say,
Amen.
Amen. You may be seated. Those who were here to attend the regularly scheduled Minyan, you can either stay or excuse yourself at this time. This evening we're going to hear words of memory during the Shiva process of Younes Nazarian, but a word of introduction, because it's traditional to say a word of Torah at a Shiva Minyan. And literally the word of Torah that I want to say is the last word in the Torah, and that is Yisrael, Israel. And I say that for so many reasons. We know how not only connected Younes and Saraya are to the land of Israel, but how they literally have built the state of Israel and the people that love it. But 8 years ago when I came to Sinai Temple as a rabbi, one of my first things to do outside of Sinai Temple was to be honored by speaking on a panel at the Younes and Saraya Nazarian Center for Israel Studies at UCLA. And it was the first time as a rabbi that I understood how one could love Israel and bring different voices to the table. It was the first time as a rabbi that I sat on a panel with people that were not part of our community, people that were different denominations in Judaism, people that maybe thought very different than me, but the one unifying factor was Ahavat Yisrael, the love of the land of Israel and the people of Israel. And I know I personally will eternally be grateful for that and for the generations of students and teachers that are the beneficiaries of those Israel Studies programs at UCLA and beyond. And so this evening, we're going to first call upon Philip Nazarian to speak with us.
So you'll have to excuse me because I've thought about this day for years, and I always thought about how I wanted to talk about my grandpa, and it never felt right to write anything ahead of time, and I've thought for hours, for years about what I'd say, and I have so much to say, but I also wanted it to come straight from my heart, and if anyone's seen me around my grandpa the last couple of years, they know I've probably cried in public more than any single person about him. I cried at times that didn't make sense. I cried at his 91st birthday a couple months ago. I'd be at parties and people would say how great my grandpa was, and I'd immediately start crying, and I couldn't control myself, and I didn't know where it came from. I loved him so much, but it was more than that. He gave me such a blessing of giving me so much time and our whole family so much time to say goodbye to him, but there's still something like so tough about it for me, and it wasn't saying goodbye. It felt more in this last week, seeing my grandpa approach his last days. I really couldn't stop myself, and I remember talking to my mom, and my mom was like, you knew this was coming. He's had such an amazing life. She understood it, but I was just I couldn't even understand it, why I was so sad. And the more I thought about it, the more I just kept repeating in my head, it didn't feel fair to my grandpa. It's like the weirdest feeling that he lived such an amazing life. He had such a full life. He lived for so long. He had the best family, the most amazing accomplishments, and I just felt like it wasn't fair. And the more I thought, I felt like nothing was enough nothing was like could do my grandpa justice. He was the most amazing person ever. He accomplished so much, but what was more amazing was how he accomplished everything. Unwavering principles, the most genuine sense of giving that I've ever seen, and I think anyone has ever seen. And he did all with such an appreciation for his life. For someone that had such tough times and such amazing times, he had the biggest smile on his face. And for someone who's been blessed with so much because of what he's done, I still can't believe how he's been able to have the most enjoyment possible. And I just always wanted to do anything I could for him, and I just felt like he always deserved more and more. And for someone that's lived so much, I felt like he deserved another 100 years of life. Like 91 years wasn't enough. And the more I thought, the more I really realized that this wasn't the end for my grandpa at all. My grandpa, this was just the first stage for him. He's always gonna live on through the impact he's had on my family, what he's taught all of us, what he's done for the community. I've always thought of my grandpa as like the Big Bang. He created everything. He created like so much. He brought so much into existence from nothing. And us right here is just like an echo of that amazing, amazing moment in life. And I know everything that comes thereafter is his doing, his love, his spirit, all of his, like everything. He's gonna be accomplishing things for another 100 years through me, my own grandkids, my cousins, my parents, my aunts and uncles. And I know that this is all a part of his spirit, living on and getting the hundreds of years more that I know the most amazing man in the world deserved. And I know everyone loved him so much, and I'm just very, very lucky to have him. I wanted to invite up Chancellor Block of UCLA to speak on behalf of on account of my uncle and share some special words.
Well, thank you, and truly moving tribute to your grandfather. Thank you. So we all recognize that Younes was an extraordinary individual. Everybody who knew him knew that. But as I remember Younes, I remember him first as a kind and gentle friend to Carol and to me. He was first a friend and then a great individual. Even when he was struggling with health issues, he was always gracious and optimistic. A few years ago, I remember this so clearly, he came to an event at the Luskin Conference Center, and he was really ailing at that time. It was a physical struggle to be there. But he was there. And that says so much about Younes's commitment to his friends and the institutions that he cared about. An extraordinary commitment to family, to friends, to institutions. Younes's belief in the value of education was unshakable. As you know, he and his family were generous donors to educational and cultural institutions in the US and in Israel. Substantial commitments to many institutions throughout this city. He had a perspective born of his own personal history, his Jewish heritage, and his experience as an immigrant, that education was a path to stability, fulfillment, and indeed joy. His and Soraya's creation of our Nazarian Center for Israel Studies was one such gift that gave UCLA faculty and students important perspectives on Israel that is so valuable during these challenging times, a truly remarkable center. It was important that the center be at a public university and that it not just court Jewish or Israeli students, but bring an understanding of Israeli culture and issues to the wider community. I know he was proud of what the center has accomplished. Younes leaves behind an extraordinary partner, Soraya, and an equally remarkable family. His values and deeds will live on through them. But I will miss that gentle smile and friendship of Younes Nazarian, a very special human being. Carol and I truly loved him, such a special person, and we miss him.
We'll conclude the service with the traditional words of comfort, and then Philip has just announcements for what will be next tomorrow evening, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5:45 p.m. here in the main sanctuary. We conclude Hamakom Yenadchem Etchem B'toch Shar V'Letzion B'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted with all the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And let us say, Amen.
So my family wanted to invite everyone to Ziegler Hall afterwards to have some refreshments and be able to spend some time with the family if you'd like. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.